سيدنا محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى كل من استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم أما بعد. It is really an honor for me to be here tonight, and it is a great privilege for someone like me to be given the chance to sit here and narrate to my brothers and to my sisters the tales of a man that loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and loved his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at a level that many leaders and many people after him failed to manifest their level of love to Allah and his Prophet like he did. Many people claim, and it's an easy claim to be made, that they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that love the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and that they love Islam and that they are willing to die for the sake of this religion and they are willing to die for the sake of the faith. But this man, who is my king, who is my sultan, who is my amir, who is my leader, Salahudeen, proved to the world that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the sake of his Prophet, he is willing to face the whole world in its entirety just to ensure that Islam is the religion of Allah, just to ensure that this Islam is strong and is safe and, more importantly, is sovereign. Salahudeen, rahimahullah, is a man that did not say the Shahada with his words or by his tongue alone. Salahudeen, rahimahullah, said the Shahada with his life. He said the Shahada with his heart. He said the Shahada with his body. He said the Shahada with his tears. He said the Shahada with his pain. And he said it with every living limb in his body and every pulse that goes through his heart. Many people are proud of Salahudeen because he conquered, or he is the one that freed Jerusalem, Bayt al-Maqdis, from the Crusaders. And indeed, this is a great event in the history of Islam. And it is something to be proud of. And that's why when Ibn Baz was asked about it, and this statement was made when Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Munajjid asked Ibn Baz about his opinion in Salahudeen. And Sheikh al-Munajjid, he narrates that in his tape, in one of the tapes where he speaks about Salahudeen and his effort in reviving the movement of jihad. What does he say? He says, I have no doubt, لا شك لدي أنه من مجددي الإسلام في الجهاد. He said, I have no doubt that him, Salahudeen, is one of the revivers of Islam as far as jihad is concerned. However, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he makes a nicer statement that I like more. And he mentions that in his Majmu' al-Fatawa in volume 14. He says, ومن حينئذ ظهرت بهذه البلاد كلمة الإسلام والسنة والجماعة وصار يقرأ فيها أحاديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كالبخاري ومسلم ونحو ذلك ويذكر فيها مذاهب الأئمة الأربعة ويتردى فيها على الخلفاء الراشدين وإلا كانوا قبل ذلك شر الخلق. He said, and from this time, meaning from the time that Salahudeen Ayyubi entered and became the leader of the Muslims in Egypt and North Africa, the word of Islam and Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah became what? Became the dominant one. And the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which is found in books like al-Bukhari and Muslim and so forth, became what? Became read. People began to read them and speak about it. And the four madhahib of fiqh for the Sada, al-Ahnaf, and the Shafi'iyya, and the Malikiyya, and al-Hanabila started to appear amongst people. And people, for the first time, began to praise the four khulafa, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, wa Umar, wa Uthman, wa Ali radiallahu anhum ajma'in. And before that, they were, meaning the people who were in Egypt, the worst of people. What does that mean? This means that Salahudeen rahimahullah did not only free a piece of land. Salahudeen rahimahullah revived an entire religion. And this is not my words. These are the words of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Now, why do I choose him? Many people speak about the greatness of Salahudeen, but why do I choose Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah? I chose him for one reason. Everyone knows that there are areas of differences between Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and Salahudeen. In matters that relate to what? In matters that relate to Aqidah. Yet, the greatness of Salahudeen and the greatness of his achievements and the greatness of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and his fairness made him what? Made him say such words in praise of Salahudeen. And Salahudeen rahimahullah, he deserved every word that was said in his praise by this particular scholar. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to adopt the opinion of a particular scholar over another, then do so. I will not hold you back. But learn from the scholars that you follow the ethics of dealing with your leaders, whether as far as the Sharia sciences are concerned, or whether as far as the leaders of Islam are concerned. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, in his book Al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, volume 13, when he speaks about ahdath, the year 561, talks about the events of the year 561, he says, talking about Salahudeen, كان همه الأكبر ومقصده الأعظم نصرة الإسلام وكسر أعدائه اللئام وكان يعمل رأيه في ذلك وحده ومع من يثق به ليلا ونهارا. He's talking about Salahudeen. He says, his main worry, meaning the main worry of Salahudeen, and his greatest aim was to make the religion of Allah, the religion of Islam, sovereign, meaning the leading and the governing religion, and to break its enemies, and used to think and plan for this by himself and with the ones that he trusted day and night. In other words, Salahudeen rahimahullah was more than just a noble knight or a fierce fighter. He was indeed a Muslim reviver, someone that revived the religion on all levels, on the political level, on the economic level, on the military level, and on the religious level. So brothers and sisters, in the coming nights, inshallah, we will look at Salahudeen, not just an army general, as many people do. We will look at him as a leader. We'll look at him as a father. We'll look at him as a worshipper. We'll look at him as a politician, and also as a courageous knight. And the first thing we begin with, as it is the habit of the people that speak about the biographies, is his race and his lineage. What is the background of Salahudeen rahimahullah? Salahudeen comes from a Kurdish background. He comes from a Kurdish background, from a tribe that is known to be noble and that is known to be of dignity. And that's why Ibn al-Athir, he classifies him, or he classifies his tribe as what? As Ashraful Akrad, the most noble of the Kurds. Why? Because they are a tribe that never experienced slavery. When they entered Islam, did not become slaves and then they embraced Islam. No, they embraced Islam from the beginning willingly, and none of them were taken as slaves. And he belongs to a branch which is called Al-Hadhabaniya, which is part of a major tribe which is called Al-Rawadiya. And his grandfathers, they come from a village called Duwain, or in English they call it Dvin. And it is a small village that exists on the borders of Azerbaijan and Armenia. Of course, Armenia, the medieval Armenia, the old one, not the new one. However, some of the descendants of Salahudeen, or some of the descendants of his fathers, because the greatness of Salahudeen does not start with him, it starts with his fathers and his uncle and his grandfather. They try to show that they come from an Arabic background. So in a particular area down the line of the family, some of them, they claimed that actually they are originally Arabs. So they said, well, we are, even though we are from the Kurds, but we are Arabs that actually lived for a long time with the Kurds. And then some of the historians that try to make, that try to fix up the family tree in a way to show that he comes all the way back to what? To Quraysh. And more specifically to the Bani Umayyah, to the Umayyad dynasty. Why? Because they want to take the greatness of the achievements of Salahudeen to themselves. And they want to make a claim that the greatness of Salahudeen comes from the fact that he is an Arab. And he is an Arab leader. And he is from what? From Quraysh. And he is from Bani Umayyah. And that's why he was so great. And that's why he achieved so much. But this is a great mistake. We don't really care what is the background of Salahudeen. It doesn't really matter from what race he comes. And most of the historians that spoke about his lineage, like Ibn al-Athir or Ibn Kathir or al-Dhahabi or Abu Shama or Ibn Shaddad, they mentioned the fact that he was what? He came from a Kurdish background. So why do they do that? First of all, this is lying. And second of all, this is forgery. And third of all, this goes against the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Islam, we don't believe that race is the thing that makes people great. Race does not produce heroes. And if it were the case, then why are the Arabs today, if it is in their genes to be so great, and I am an Arab, so don't think I'm being racist. Why are the Arabs, if it is in their gene to be great, are so humiliated today and so weak today? And in fact, the teachings of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell us that the greatness of Islam comes in the fact that it does not stop at any particular boundary. It does not belong to a tribe. It does not belong to a race. Even the Muslims at the days of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they were to neglect the religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace them with those who are better than them. Because this is a continuous message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not bounded by a particular race. So if you are willing to carry the flag, then it is an honor for you. Take it. If you're not willing, then there are many other people that Allah will bring that will be better than you, and that will carry it. And that's what we believe, is that Islam is the only religion that has produced men whose hearts were not attached to the life, to the worldly life, who were not bound, who were not binded by their desires. It produced men that loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they knew that they are servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and loved for this universe to be reformed, and they loved for all the humans to taste the beauty of justice and truth and being in touch with the one that He created them. That's why Allah says, يا أيها الناس إن خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Surah Al-Hujurat. It says, O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes. Why? So that you may know one another. You meet, you socialize, you mix under the banner of Islam. Verily, the most honorable of you is who? Is the one who has achieved the highest level of taqwa with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verily, Allah is all-knowing and all-aware of those who achieve taqwa. And that's the standard that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has set up. So there's no karama without taqwa. You have no honor or dignity or status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without what? Taqwa. I don't want to divert a lot, but the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even when he spoke with his own family, he said to them, he spoke to Fatima, Fatima, don't come to me on their judgment with your lineage. And people will come with their actions. I cannot save you from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا أغني عنك من الله شيئا. I cannot do anything for you in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you come to me with your actions. And the actions are what? Are the teachings of Islam. And that's where we all rotate, and that's how we should all rotate. Who's the grandfather of Salahudeen? The grandfather of Salahudeen, his first grandfather, his name is Shadi ibn Marwan ibn Yaqub. Shadi with Dal, not with Dal, it's not Shadi, Shadi ibn Marwan ibn Yaqub. He's his first grandfather. Second grandfather is Marwan and then Yaqub. His father's name is Ayyub, Ayyub ibn Shadi. And he is commonly known as what? Anyone knows? As Najm al-Din. And his uncle, his name is Shirkuh, Shirkuh ibn Shadi. And he is also known by another title, which is what? Asaduddin. Now, we'll get back to Nuruddin. طيب, this family, don't worry, this family lives in a village which is on the borders of Azerbaijan and Armenia. Correct? But when we know about Salahudeen, we know that he was a leader of the Muslims, and he was in Jerusalem, and he was in Damascus, and he was in Baalbek, and he was in Egypt, and he was in Iraq. How did that happen? How did this family move? The grandfather of Salahudeen Shadi used to have a friend who is called Bahruz. And in some narrations, they say his name was Nahruz. Of course, these names are strange to you because they're not Arab names, because these people are not Arabs. Nahruz, who was later on known as Mujahid al-Din, he got the title Mujahid al-Din, Nahruz. He just got a title, don't worry about him deserving the title. Saw a great opportunity in immigrating to Baghdad. So he spoke with his friend Shadi. He said, what do you think? We go to Baghdad. Baghdad is the city of wealth, subhanAllah. Until today, people like to go to Baghdad. Until today, people have greed in benefiting from what's in Baghdad. He said, why don't we go to Baghdad, the city of wealth? There is money, there is status. There's status. What are we doing here in the village? Village life is very simple. Let's go and achieve something. Shadi did not have the ambition that his friend had. He said, if you want to go, you go. I'm staying here. And indeed, Bahruz went to Baghdad, and he joined the army, and he worked hard, and bit by bit, he started moving from one rank to another until he became the leader of Al-Shahna, or as it is known, Al-Shahnakiyya. What is Al-Shahnakiyya? Shahnakiyya means the leader of the police department, something similar to the police department today. So he had a position which is similar to what we have in Australia as police commissioner. He was responsible for the security of Baghdad. Of course, Baghdad back then, it was even greater from what it is now. It was the capital of all the Muslim world, or the majority of the Muslim world. It was a rich city, and it was the place where the main Khalifa is living. So not anyone can be trusted with such a position because it is a great responsibility. But Bahruz worked hard and he achieved and he got to this particular position. He did not forget his friend. He did not forget his friend. So what did he do? He sent some of his generals to the village and he said to them, I want you to bring Shadi to me and bring him with his family. They went to the village, they said to him, the police commissioner of Baghdad wants you. Of course, Shadi, as you can imagine, he said, Khalas, this is death. Me in a village, why would the police commissioner want me? Except to what? Except to kill me. So he farewelled his family and they said to him, no, you have to bring your family with you. Command the family? They said, yes, you have to bring the family. So he brought his family and he farewelled the rest of his, there is a car, there's a problem with the car. Yes, whoever has a van that has installation on top of it, let him remove it, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. Anyway, they said to him, you have to take your family with you. So they packed the stuff and he left. What did the family of Shadi consist of back then? It was him, his wife, 2 sons, Ayyub and Shirkuh, and 3 females, 3 daughters. And they came to Baghdad. When he came to Baghdad, he walked in, he saw Bahruz. Bahruz, my friend, is the police commissioner. Couldn't believe his eyes. And he became what? He became interested. He saw status, castles, servants. So he became interested. Bahruz, he loved his friend so much. He said to him, you are going to stay with me in Baghdad. You're not going back to the village anymore. So you have to stay here. طيب, what do I do here? I said, don't worry. I'm going to place you as a leader in the Qal'a of Tikrit, in the fortress of Tikrit. Tikrit, it's the same Tikrit of Saddam Hussein. Tikrit was actually a very rich city as well, a very rich small suburb, if you want to say. It has a fortress. It's actually a city on the river of Dajla. And he said, you stay there and you live there and whatever. And he gave him some land to live off and he gave him a position. Of course, Shadi, as any of us, would not be complaining. He loved life. He had no problems. And he lived there for a long time. And the people loved Shadi. What happened is that Shadi died. So who would take his position after him? He had two sons, Ayyub, Najmuddin Ayyub, and Salahudeen Shirkuh. The oldest one was who? Was Najmuddin Ayyub. So Najmuddin became the one who is officially the leader of the fortress. And Bahruz gave him the leadership after their father. It is actually it's a habit to inherit positions in the Arab world and the Muslim world these days. It happened. They became the leaders. Now, what was different here is that, and what was important is that usually two brothers would compete on what? On the position. If you study the history of politics and leadership, you always find that people are willing to kill their sons, or sons are willing to kill their fathers for the sake of them having what? A leadership position, especially a fortress like Tikrit. But subhanAllah, from the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the beauty of His decree, is that these two brothers were very different. Najmuddin Ayyub was very intelligent, was very wise, was very patient. He was an excellent political person. Salahudeen Shirkuh was the total opposite of his brother. Salahudeen Shirkuh, as his title suggests, he was just a lion. He was a fierce fighter. Very strong on the battlefield. When it comes to military life, he knows everything that has to be known. But put him in a leadership position, he'll fail. So what happened is that the two complemented one another. Just to give you an example of his power, that is Salahudeen. Salahudeen Shirkuh was so strong that when Ahmad-ad-Din Zinki used to have battles with the Crusaders, the leaders of the Crusaders, the kings of the Crusaders like Baldwin or Jocelyn and others, would actually try to see where is Salahudeen fighting. Now back then the armies, they would have a head and the core, the qalb, and then Maymana Masra, then right part, and then left part, and then the end. They would look, where is Salahudeen? If he is in the right, they will fight on the left. If he's on the left, they will fight on the right. They tried their best. They used to always avoid what? Coming in contact with Salahudeen Shirkuh, because he was scary. He was someone that when he fights, he has no mercy in his fighting. And that's what fighting is all about really at the time of war. You cannot just hit with a sword and just go like this. You can't. It's an enemy that you are facing. And that's why the French ladies, the French women and the German women, when they used to want to scare their children, they would actually use Salahudeen Shirkuh and Ahmad-ad-Din as the beast, as the monster that is coming to eat them. If you don't go to sleep, Ahmad-ad-Din is going to come and eat you. And they'll just get scared and go to sleep. And if one of them wanted to make a death wish on her son, she would say to him, I hope that you will die under the feet of the horse of Salahudeen Shirkuh. And sometimes I hope they would die under the feet of the horse of Ahmad-ad-Din Zinki. Ahmad-ad-Din Zinki was a Turk. Salahudeen Shirkuh was a Kurd. Then after he died, they would do the same thing in relation to Salahudeen rahimahullah. They would use Salahudeen also as the scary monster. But personally, I don't believe that Salahudeen was really as scary as they would like to make him to be. He was much more merciful, if you want to say, and what's much more generous, and much more tolerant and forgiving with his enemies than anyone else. And you know what? They didn't always deserve what he's done to them. And that's why some of the Muslim historians, they criticized him for too much mercy sometimes in dealing with them. Because whenever he used to forgive them, would just come back and attack him again, regardless. So Najmuddin Ayyub and Asaduddin Shirkuh, they complemented one another and they continued to rule Tikrit. Of course, Tikrit, and before that, Bahrouz, who's the police commissioner of the whole of Baghdad, including the area of Tikrit, they are all under the Khilafah of what? Khilafah of al-Mustarshid, Al-Khalifa al-Abbasi. And they had no problems with that. But once a battle broke between the Sultan of the Muslim Seljuks, Sultan Mahmud Shah, and Al-Khalifa al-Abbasi, they fought with one another. And Mahmud Shah, the Sultan of the Seljuks, and the Seljuks are actually one of the tribes of the Turks, one of the tribes. They attacked Baghdad, but the attack failed. And Imaduddin Zinki, who was a general in the army, became wounded, became heavily wounded, and was very tired. And as the army fled away from Baghdad, returning to the stations, Imaduddin Zinki was left, and he made it to the river of Dajla, just right in front of what? In front of Tikrit. So he was in the hands of who? He was in the hands of Najmuddin Ayyub and Asaduddin Shirkuh. They caught him, they put him in. Now, Najmuddin Ayyub treated him well. He got him in, they started dealing with his wounds. Asaduddin Shirkuh was not happy with what his brother is doing. He said, what are you doing? He said, نحن جنود عند المسترشد. Because we are soldiers under the reign of the Abbathi Khalifa al-Mustarshid. And if we are caught with him under our protection here, we are dead. So, what are you doing with him? Kill him. He wanted to what? He wanted to kill him. Najmuddin Ayyub said beautiful words to his brother. He said to him, وَمَا الْخَلِيفَةُ الْمُسْتَرْشِدُ? He goes, what is the Abbasi Khalifa? وهل هو إلا رجل وهل هو إلا خليفة يحمل سيفا من خشب يجلس تحت المنبر عند صلاة الجمعة. Said to him, is he more than just a man that carries a wooden embroidered sword under the pulpit at the time of Jum'ah? What is Najmuddin Ayyub trying to say here? He's trying to say to him that the Khalifa that you are so scared about, that you are worried about him, what is he doing to Islam? Is he playing his role as a Khalifa? Or is he just someone that grabs a sword and sits under the pulpit? He can't even give a sermon himself. He needs someone to do the sermon for him and to make dua for him, and he just sits there and looks pretty. While the Muslims, and at this time, and of course because we have only 5, we can't touch on the Crusaders and what they did. While the Muslims were massacred immensely by the Crusaders, their lands are actually being burnt and the flesh have been literally eaten. They have eaten the flesh of Muslims. They put children on spikes and barbecued them and ate them. So Najmuddin Ayyub was not happy at all with the Khalifa al-Mustarshid. How could you just sit there and do nothing? Asaduddin Shirkuh went quiet. And then Najmuddin Ayyub looked at him and said to him, Ya akhi, لماذا يتقاتل الأمراء? He goes, why do princes and leaders fight? Asaduddin Shirkuh said to him, حتى يعلو أمير ويقع أمير. So one prince falls and the other one takes his place. Najmuddin said to him, he said, والله ما أرى رجلا يقاتل لله إلا عماد الدين زنكي. ولو كنت أميرا لبغداد لصيرت أهل بغداد إلى أهل الموصل وجعلتهم في إمرة عماد الدين زنكي ليقاتلوا في رنجة. فوالله ما أردت إلا أن أحفظ سيفا لله في الأرض. He said to him, by Allah, and you are saying that all the princes and leaders fight, so one of them can take over the position and the land of the other. He goes, the only one that I know that he's fighting for the sake of Allah, Wallahi, the only one that I know that is fighting for the sake of Allah is Imad al-Din. And if I were the prince or the leader of Baghdad, the capital, then I would have actually made the people of Baghdad join the people of Mosul, because Imad al-Din Zinki was the leader of the Mosul, a county, an imara, a big imara, and put him under his reign so he can fight the Crusaders. He goes, Wallah, when I took him in and protected him and treated it and looked after his wounds, I only wanted to preserve one of the swords of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the face of the earth. Upon this, Salahudeen Shirko had no words to say. Now, this is the situation. Salahudeen is worried about the own fate, about the own safety. Ya akhi, if we do this, then we are going to be dead. We belong to him. The leader of this man is the enemy of that man. Najmuddin is not thinking about his safety. Najmuddin is thinking about the safety of his nation, the safety of the Muslims. And he sees Ahmaduddin as someone that is sincere, fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a hope to protect the Muslims and free their land. So in the eyes of Najmuddin, Ahmaduddin should not be killed, even if he's not in agreement with the Khalifa, even if it meant that his fate is to be what? Is to be endangered. Because he believes that what this man is doing for the sake of the Ummah is much more important than himself and his brother. And indeed, he protected him, and he looked after him, and he fed him until he became well, and then he gave him a sword, and then he gave him a horse, and he ensured him a safe passage, and he let him go back to his state, Al-Mosul. Al-Mosul was also part of Iraq. And then they continued to rule Al-Mosul. Now Bahruz, he's the police commissioner. Even though they are responsible for the fortress of Tikrit, but Bahruz has a battalion that only answers back to him in every single castle. And he had a battalion of such nature where? In Tikrit. And the one who is responsible for this battalion, his name is Muqaddam al-Askar, the head of the, or the leader of the soldiers. And he does not respond to who? To Salahudeen or to Najmuddin. His relationship is with who? With the police commissioner directly. What happened is that this man tried to dishonor a Muslim woman that lives in the fortress. Of course, when we say fortress, it's actually a city that has major walls, so they call it fortress, okay? He tried to dishonor a lady that lives in the fortress. She went to Salahudeen Shirko asking for help. He did that to me. He tried to do that to me. Salahudeen Shirko, as you know him by now, he was what? Enraged. So he just went straight to the man. He grabbed him, he killed him, and he threw his body in the river of Dajla. Did not think. The soldiers of the battalion took the corpse of the leader and they took it to who? Bahruz. Look what Salahudeen and Najmuddin have done to the one that is from your army. Bahruz was very angry. You kill him straight away? He was not happy. So he looked at, or he actually sent a message to Najmuddin Ayyubi and to Salahudeen Shirko, which says the following. I love your father, Shadi. And if it weren't for the status of your father and his love in my heart, then I would have killed you and ended his line. But for his sake, I'll let you leave. But you are no longer to stay under the heaven, the sky, or the earth, or to walk on the earth of Baghdad. Which means what? Which means either you go out from my borders, from the borders and boundaries of Baghdad, or you are going to be what? Or you are going to be dead. Simple. So, subhanallah, overnight, the knights, the leaders, became what? Became weak, became poor, and became homeless. They cannot stay in the castle, they cannot stay in Tikrit, they cannot stay in Baghdad. They have to ensure that by the time that the sun rises, they cannot be caught by anyone. They have to leave. So, they gathered their families, and they went out. And some narrations say that they took actually a ship to take him out because Tikrit was on the river of Dajla. At this difficult night, which is regarded as the worst night in the life of Najmuddin Ayyub, his wife delivered a newborn baby. A newborn baby. They're running out in the same night. She delivered a newborn baby. They're running away and the baby is screaming like anything. He's not going quiet. Najmuddin was very angry, was very worried. He was enraged. Why? Because their life is at stake. They lost everything. They lost everything. And they're trying to make a safe escape. They got into the boat, they're going out, the baby keeps on screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming in the ears of who? In the ears of Najmuddin. And of course Najmuddin was not happy with his brother. So he could not take it anymore. So he looked at that child and he said, this child is a bad omen on me. Is a curse on me. Looking at his newborn baby. And the child kept on screaming. So he was very angry. So he came and he put his hand on the mouth of who? Of the baby. He wants to keep it quiet. And some historians say that as if he wanted actually, it's not as if actually he intended to kill that baby. He just wanted to be quiet. One of his servants and his brother, they blamed him for what he has done. So they came and they removed his hand, they removed his hand from the mouth of the baby. And then one of the servants said to him, some of them say the servant, some of them say his brother. Allah, the most correct opinion, it's actually the servant who said that to him. Said to him, يا مولاي قد رأيت ما حدث عندك من الطيرة والتشاؤم بهذا الصبي. I can see how you are treating that child as if he's a bad omen and a curse on you. وأي شيء له من الذنب. And what sin has he committed for you to think of him in such a way? وبما استحق ذلك منه وهو لا ينفع ولا يضر ولا يغني شيئا. And how did he deserve that treatment from you? And he cannot benefit you or harm you or do anything to you. وهذا الذي جرى عليك قضاء الله وقدره. And what has happened to you, it is only the destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His decree upon you. And then he said to him a statement, subhanAllah, that this man made without any intention, but it was a very strong and effective statement. He said to him, وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ أَنَّ هَذَا الطِّفْلِ يَكُونُ مَلِكًا عَظِيمَ الصِّيتِ جَلِيلَ الْمِقْدَارِ وَلَعَلَّ اللَّهَ جَاعِلٌ لَهُ شَأْنًا فَاسْتَبْقِهِ فَهُوَ طِفْلٌ. Said to him, and how do you know that this baby will become a king that will have a very good and spread reputation and be very well respected and venerated by people and will have great matters related to him? So keep him alive. Don't do anything to him. For verily he has no sin in what you're going through from agony and pain. These words calmed Najmuddin Ayyub all the way down. And he regretted what he did and he repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he moved away from the baby. Now, where should they go now? Where can they go? Are they going to go back to the village? Can they stay in Baghdad? No. Where should they go? They headed to Al-Mosul. They went to the state of Mosul. Who's the leader of the Mosul? Imaduddin Zinki. He said, the place that we can go to is Al-Mosul. We've done a favor to the man. Let's try if he actually will give us protection. Now this year was the year 532 Hijri. Okay. Now what is the name of the newborn baby that Najmuddin Ayyub had? No, his name was not Salahudeen. His name was Yusuf. But his title was Salahudeen. His name was Yusuf. He named that child Yusuf. So Salahudeen Ayyubi, his name is Yusuf ibn Ayyub. And he was given the title Salahudeen. And his kunya was Abu al-Mudaffar, the one who's always victorious. So the two brothers, Najmuddin Ayyub and Asad ad-Din Shirkuh, they headed to what? To the Mosul. When they got there, Imaduddin Zinki saw them and he was very pleased to see them. So he took them in and he was very hospitable with them and he honored them and he gave them land, ownership of a land so they can live of its crops. And he entered them into his own courtiers. So when they went to Mosul, they were very, very well respected and very well treated. Subhanallah. The good Asana of Najmuddin Ayyub ensured that the Ayyubi dynasty will have a continuous existence and they will become kings. The good Asana of Najmuddin Ayyub. And the fact that Najmuddin Ayyub put the benefit of the Ummah over his own safety, opposite to his brother Asad ad-Din Shirkuh, caused Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ensure his safety through what? through his sacrifice for the sake of the Ummah. See how it works? Asad-ud-Din is scared for their life. Ya akhi, if we get him in, he's the enemy of Al-Khalifa. He's going to kill us. He said to him, no, he's good for the Ummah. So we take care of him, we'll let him go out. We don't have to kill him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he did for the good action that was done by Najm-ud-Din, he said to him, I'm going to make the safety of your family and the safety of your brother, Asad-ud-Din Shirkuh, through the good action that you've done for my sake. And therefore the safety of Najm-ud-Din and his family and his brother and the family of his brother became a result of the good deed that was done by Najm-ud-Din Ayyub to Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we learn from this a very important lesson. Any action that you do for the sake of Allah sincerely, I promise you that its reward will be here and in the akhirah. And the greater the action that you do, inshallah, the greater that your reward is, as long as it is for the sake of Allah and it is sincere. And what happened after that is a complete change. Now, Najm-ud-Din Ayyub and Asad-ud-Din Shirkuh became leaders under the reign of who? Of Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki, and he loved them and he looked after them. And they started to fight with him and they became one of his generals. And then after the death of Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki, of course, Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki, subhanallah, everyone loves Salahudeen, but people have no idea who Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki. Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki is even his father. He's one of the great scholars of Islam, inshallah, if Allah gives us, one of the great leaders of Islam, and if Allah gives me a chance, I want to talk about his life as well. Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki loved them. He was a very intelligent, very wise, and a very fierce fighter that his enemies feed a lot. Died. Did they leave him alone? No, they stood behind his son, Nuradin Mahmud. Now, Nuradin Mahmud, if you think Salahudeen is good, and if you think Ahmad Zinki is good, Nuradin is beyond the descriptions of words. No one in the history of the Khulafa after Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was able to meet the level of status and taqwa and salah of Nuradin Mahmud. And inshallah I want to talk about him as well. They stood by his side and they supported him. What happened is that Ahmad-ud-Din Zinki, I don't want to get into his life, but because he was so good, some of the ministers fixed up the way and they gave him the ownership of Al-Mosul and Halab, Mosul and Aleppo. Of course, these countries back then, they were not small cities that you know today. Mosul was actually like third of Iraq, and Aleppo was actually probably third of Syria and a major part of South Turkey today. So that's where they were planning. They said if he controls them, then he can block the front from the Crusaders. And he can block anyone helping him from that side. And then he can actually attack down and free the Muslim lands. What happened is that they also helped him, Najm-ud-Din Ayyub and Asad-ud-Din Shirkuh, in adding Damascus to his reign. So now we have Mosul and Halab and Aleppo and Damascus all under the reign of who? Nuradin Mahmud. Now, in this year, because of that, the Ayyubi family moved from Mosul to where? To Damascus. With Nuradin Mahmud. Because Nuradin Mahmud, he actually stationed there, he lived there. And then what happened is that in the year 534, Nuradin Mahmud also gained Baalbek to his control. Of course, Baalbek also was not a small city as it is now in Lebanon. Probably was actually half of the third of Lebanon and part of Syria. When he gained Baalbek, who did he put as a leader over it? Najm-ud-Din Ayyub. How old was baby Salahudeen? He was 2 years old. Born 532, they got 534. So he moved with his family to where? To Baalbek. And that's where Salahudeen grew up. He grew up, he began to learn his religion, memorized the Quran, memorized Hadith. And then at the same time, he learned how to fight, all the issues of warfare, how to be a knight, the ethics of being a knight, and everything that relates to being a leader, and everything that relates to being what? To being a prince. And as he's growing, the Crusaders attacked the Muslim land through the valley of Biqa. And the ones who blocked them were his father and his uncle Asad-ud-Din Shirkuh. And they were able to block them, and they defeated them, and they took some of them as prisoners. That was in the year of what? In the 546. In the same year, Salahudeen Shirkuh decided to take Salahudeen with him. Now, how old is Salahudeen now? 14 years old. He's 14 years old. He has learned, memorized, trained, and he's ready as far as that is concerned. So his father sent him with his uncle. So he became one of the assistants of his uncle. And his uncle was very, very close to who? To the main leader, who is Nur ad-Din. So he was always with Salahudeen Shirkuh, and then Nuradin had the basira in looking at people. Watching Salahudeen going around with his uncle, he began to realize that this young man has very good skills. He's very strong military. He can give him an administrative position. And he's not dumb, he's not all energetic, he's wise, he thinks. And that's why Abu Shama, he goes, أن صلاح الدين تقدم بين يدي نور الدين فقبله وأقطعه إقطاع حسن. And he actually, they brought him in front of Nur ad-Din, and Nur ad-Din liked him, and then he gave him a piece of land, and he loved him. وعول عليه ونظر إليه. And he began to rely on him. How old is he? 14. And he began to rely on him. وَنَظَرَ إِلَيْهِ. He began to watch him. وَقَرَّبَهُ وَخَصَّصَهُ. And he got him closer to him and started treating him differently than others. Why? Because he saw in him the characteristics of a leader. And whenever he would want to consult the uncle of Salahudeen, Salahudeen Shirkuh, who would he use? Salahudeen. So if he wants to send a message to Salahudeen, who would he send it through? Salahudeen. Dispatch Salahudeen to me. Salahudeen comes, tell your uncle 1, 2, 3. And therefore, he started allowing him to know the secrets of their government. Taxes, how to collect them, what do we do with them, treasury, administration, and security. Why? Because Nur ad-Din was someone that was always consulting his generals, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nur ad-Din loved the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when we talk about him, you'll see the closeness between him and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why he used to always consult them. So he always needs someone to what? To be the liaison officer between him and them. And that's how Salahudeen became very, very close. And Salahudeen loved Nur ad-Din so much. And when he became close to him and he began to assign him duties, he was very, very happy. As Ibn Furat says, he says, وَكَانَتْ مَخَيْلُ السَّعَادَةِ عَلَى صَلَاحِ الدِّينِ لَائِحَةً. And we can see that Salahudeen was very happy and joyful that Nur ad-Din is trusting him and is beginning to what? To use him. And then, when Nur ad-Din Mahmud decided, Nur ad-Din Zinki decided to send Salahudeen Shirkuh to Egypt, because Egypt was under the control of who? All the Fatimis. And they became in a crisis, so they needed someone's help. So Nur ad-Din wanted to use that as a benefit so he can combine the Sham and Egypt. Ibn Taymiyyah says a beautiful saying. He says, ما اجتمعت مصر والشام إلا وعز الإسلام. He said, whenever Egypt and the Sham are under one control, one rulership, except that Islam is always on it. And Nur ad-Din, as a leader, he saw that. So there were a crisis, they asked for help. He said, perfect opportunity. Who did he send? Salahudeen Shirkuh. He sent him to what? To help them. We're not going to get into this details what happened. We'll get back to that inshallah later on. So when he sent Salahudeen Shirkuh, he said to him, take with you Salahudeen. Take with you Salahudeen and let him join you with your work. So therefore we can say that Salahudeen had the perfect opportunity because he grew up in a house where he learned how to play politics from his father. How to be wise and intelligent and patient. And he learned how to be a strong fighter from his who? From his uncle. That's why by the age of 14, his father sent him with who? With his uncle. Yalla, go with your uncle. He'll look after you. And he became a very, very strong fighter, but not a foolish fighter. Not as a foolish person like a lot of Muslims today that want to be. Scream and shout and run with no thinking. No. Don't try to use Salahudeen as your excuse. He was not like this. Nor were his fathers or the leader that helped him. And then his closeness with Nur ad-Din taught him other things. What did he learn from Nur ad-Din Zinki? He learned to love his religion. He learned that he has a religious duty that he has to fulfill. He learned that he has to be sincere. And that he has to sacrifice. And that the fate of his religion is on his shoulders. And that whenever he is stuck in a bad situation, to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nuradin Mahmud was the best person to show how a leader would turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he is in a bad situation. And Salahudeen grew up seeing Nuradin crying and prostrating and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his victory. And that's why he loved him so much. So he learned from his father, and he learned from his uncle, and he learned from his leader. Nuradin loved him so much that even though at this particular age, what did he do? He made him the one who's responsible for the police forces in Damascus, which is what? Which is his capital. And he did a perfect job. The rate of crime went down, no more thieves, and people loved Salahudeen from that time. And when he came back to them from Egypt, after the death of Nuradin, they loved him more and more. That's why when Salahudeen died, the people of Damascus, they cried and cried and cried and wept over him. And as Ibn Kathir says, he goes, and they wished that they would have sacrificed their own children for him to stay alive. He was so good in his work that he was praised by some of the poets. His name is Hassan Numair, and I will say his poetry, and then after that, inshallah, we'll end the lesson tonight and we'll continue later. He said, رويدكم يا لصوص الشام فإني لكم ناصح في المقال. He goes, await, O thieves of the Sham, for I am going to give you a very good advice. So take heed of it. أتاكم سمي النبي الكريم يوسف رب الحجى والجمال. Has come to you the one who is named after the noble prophet, the prophet of beauty and status and intelligence. فذاك يقطع أيدي النساء وهذا يقطع أيدي الرجال. He goes, and when Yusuf, the prophet, has caused for the hands of the women to be cut because of his stunning beauty, Salahudeen, because of his stunning justice, has caused for the hands of men to be cut. Subhanallah. We'll talk about his other qualities later on. He was admired by Nuradin. And I'll mention that, and then that will be at the end. Actually, I'll mention how many children did he have, and then we'll end with our story. He had 17 males, 17 sons, and 1 daughter. Okay? And they said he had others, but they died during his life. After his death, there were only 16 of his sons left and 1 daughter. I'm not going to mention the names. Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, in Bidayah and Nihaya, volume 13, he lists all the names. But we're not going to do that. All right? But what was the name of his daughter? His name was Mu'nisa bint Khatun. Mu'nisa, Afan, Mu'nisa Khatun. That was her title, Khatun, like honorable lady. Mu'nisa Khatun, and she got married to her cousin, Malik al-Kamil. Nuradin, of course, Salahudeen was young. Nuradin, at a particular stage of his life, he sent to Salahudeen and he came to him. He said to him, I want you to go and build me a pulpit. Remember? Salahudeen said, me fighting leadership, what do I have to do with building a pulpit? Come on, I'm a leader, police forces. Why do I need to build a pulpit? So he actually ignored what Nuradin said. After 3 weeks, Nuradin called him. Said to him, what have you done in relation to the pulpit? Said, yeah, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Pulpit, I'm busy with fighting and police forces. You know how it is. He said, go and find the best carpenters and the best people that build pulpits and build me one. And I chose you out of all the people that I have because I trust you. So go and do it. Salahudeen took it seriously then. So he spent a month looking around, looking for the best people that can build pulpits. What did Salahudeen think? He thought, Nuradin wants to build a nice, expensive pulpit, and he wants to put it either in Mecca or in Medina. He had no problems with that. So he began fetching, I think he spent 1 month or 2 months, until he found the best people that work in making up pulpits. He brought them, and then they took another 3 months to build it up. So around 5 to 6 months, the building of the pulpit was complete. He brought it to who? to Nuradin. When Salahudeen saw it, he looked at it, and inshallah ta'ala next, there are some old photos of it. I'll try to print them and distribute them. When Salahudeen saw it, he said, that's a nice pulpit. And after they finished, he said, man, this is a nice piece of art. He brought it to who? Nuradin. Wallahi al-Azim, as I'm preparing for Salahudeen, at a particular stage, I wanted to put Salahudeen aside and change the advertisement and start talking about Nuradin. I'm being very honest with you. Nuradin, I used to love Salahudeen so much until I knew Nuradin, and I said, I love you, but he is just too special to look at. Nuradin Mahmoud, he brought the pulpit. He saw it, was happy with it. He went on top of it, he sat, he looked up the skies, and then he put his head down and he started crying. He began to what? To cry. Salahudeen, and then he asked Salahudeen, he goes, Ya Salahudeen, why do you think I built that pulpit? Salahudeen, of course, young 20s, he said, you're building it for either Mecca or Medina. Nuradin looked at him and he said, no, I'm building this for Masjid al-Aqsa. I'm building this for Masjid al-Aqsa. Salahudeen just looked at him, and that's why Salahudeen himself, when they used to talk about Nuradin, he would just be quiet. And he will say, if you like me, I am only a small plant that was seeded by Nuradin. I said to him, why do you think I'm building it? He goes, for Mecca or Medina. I'm building this for Masjid al-Aqsa, Ya Salahudeen. And if I were to stay alive, then this pulpit will be put in the Masjid al-Aqsa. And if I die, Ya Salahudeen, then it is an amana in your neck, that when you open up Jerusalem, you put that pulpit in the Masjid al-Aqsa. It's an amana in your neck, Ya Salahudeen. Because inshallah you'll leave, and you put it yourself. Why do you need me to do it? And he said, no, I don't think I'll live enough to do it. And that's why when he dispatched Salahudeen with his uncle Asad-Din Shirkuh to Egypt, he asked him one question. He said, Ya Salahudeen, where is the pulpit? He said, I left it in Damascus. I'm not taking it with me. He goes, why aren't you taking it with you? He said, because you are still alive. You may open it and free it yourself, and then before you'll put it. He said, Ya Salahudeen, I don't think I'll live enough to free it. So take the pulpit with you. And after I die, remember my amana to you. SubhanAllah. That insight, that basira in Nuradin, it is just amazing. He did not give it to someone of his family. His children were young, but he had uncles. He didn't give it to a relative. He saw that this young Salahudeen is someone that looks like a very promising leader to open up and free Jerusalem. And he did not care about the status for himself. He wanted the reward. So he said, you take it. SubhanAllah, look how low leadership was in the eye of Nuradin Zinki. He goes, you take it with you. When I die, you continue, you put it in Al-Aqsa. We'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. And next week we'll continue with the qualities of Salahudeen. We'll talk about his worship and so forth. Wa sallallahu nabiyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
To listen to or download more Islamic lectures, please visit www.islamicmedia.com.au.